we do have our chief medical examiner for Jackson County. So, and just a little bit before we get started, excuse me, she's a native of Americus, Kansas, the big metroplex of Emporia, Kansas, Midwestern young lady. And for you, those of you that obviously can't see her, she's a beautiful young lady, and you would think, how did she get in medical examiner field? So we welcome you, and we want you to come in and chime in. And first, tell us, how did you get interested in medicine as it relates to what you're doing now?
Looking back, it started in childhood. My father is a wildlife biologist and an outdoorsman, and we would go hunting together, and I would help him clean the game. And while we were cleaning, I was asking, well, what does this do? What does this do? And he would educate me. So early on in childhood, I developed a love of anatomy, a love of science, and that progressed in undergraduate school at the Kansas State University into taking a 2-week course in death investigation. During that 2-week course, we got to hear from funeral home directors such as yourself and law enforcement officers, as well as the pathologist in Topeka at the time. And as part of that course, I got to view an autopsy, do a mock crime scene, and I was basically hooked from there on. I went to medical school knowing this was what I wanted to do. I didn't change my mind. I went to residency at the University of Alabama, Birmingham, wanting to do this, didn't change my mind, and after residency finally did get to do forensic pathology and did my fellowship also at UAB in forensic pathology. And at the end of my fellowship training, I wanted to come back to the Midwest and come back closer to home. And I have been at the Jackson County Medical Examiner's Office ever since. I've been there since August of 2010. In our office, we have investigators who take reports of death either from law enforcement or nursing staff at hospitals, nursing homes, hospice, etc. So anytime there is a death in our jurisdiction, and our jurisdiction covers Jackson, Cass Clay, and Platte counties, and if someone dies at home, for example, then it's typically a law enforcement officer who will call us and notify us of the death. Our investigators go out to every single scene. And so if an individual dies at home, or basically anywhere that's not a hospital, not a nursing home, our investigators will go out to the scene and do an investigation. They'll talk to witnesses, talk to family, talk to law enforcement, photograph the scene, and get the circumstances surrounding the death. And then they will write a report and bring the individual back to our office if there is no physician willing to sign the death certificate. Some people have extensive medical history and their physicians are willing to sign the death certificate. Those people don't come into our office. We allow the physician to sign their death certificate, and we do what we call decline jurisdiction. Anybody where we are signing the death certificate, we assume the jurisdiction, and we may or may not bring them into our office for an examination. It depends on lots of different factors, what their past medical history is, what the circumstances surrounding the death are, and if we really need to look at them and do further investigation, then of course we'll bring them in. The types of deaths that are referred to our office are people who die suddenly and unexpectedly if they're in previously good health, whether or not the death is due to natural or non-natural means, individuals who die in custody, individuals where identification is an issue. Identification is one of the other primary responsibilities of a medical examiner. Our main duty is to determine the cause and manner of death of an individual, but identification is also a large part of what we do. Children get notified to our office. Obviously, any death due to a violent means will get notified for our office. Basically, anything non-natural has to be referred to a medical examiner. A private practice physician cannot, by state statute, sign a death certificate on a non-natural death. And that's for the primary reason that an investigation needs to happen and needs to make sure that we know exactly how that non-natural cause came about, what were those circumstances, and really get to the crux of the problem and figure out, was it an accident, was it a homicide, was it a suicide, or could it have been more than one and therefore an undetermined death.
Amazing. I want to chime in here. What happens, because we've had situations where a person has had a physician, and all things being considered, for whatever reason, their attending or primary physician decides not to sign the death certificate. What happens then? What happens when, and we've had that situation here at Lawrence A. Jones and Sons Funeral Chapels a few times. So what happens then? How do you establish the jurisdiction?
Sure, and that actually happens with quite regular frequency, actually. And primary care physicians will decline to sign a death certificate if maybe they haven't seen the individual in a long period of time and they don't feel comfortable because such a long period of time has gone by. And sometimes there is something that the physician knows in the person's history that might indicate that this may not be a natural death. Maybe that physician knows that this person was known to take more prescription drugs than what they're supposed to, and it's possible that this is an overdose instead of a natural death. So there's multiple reasons why they choose not to sign the death certificate. If they do choose not to sign the death certificate, then we do assume jurisdiction. Again, that doesn't necessarily mean that we will bring them into our office if it is, Grandma Jones, who is 88 years old in her house, and she has extensive medical history, including heart disease and other issues. Then we may just do what we call in our office a sign out and complete the death certificate based off of medical records. We'll get that physician's medical records and complete the death certificate based on the medical records, in addition to that scene investigation that our investigators do. They still go out to those scenes, they still go out to that house and make sure that the circumstances and the scene look like it's a natural death and a sudden death, and that there's nothing suspicious going on for anything other than a natural death. If all of those play into part, then we'll just send the person on to a funeral home and fill out the death certificate based off of medical records. If the family doesn't know which funeral home they want to work with at the time, they're too distraught in the moment, they haven't thought about this yet, they don't know of a name yet, then we will bring them into our office until the family has had time to research and look into funeral homes and pick a funeral home. The individual will stay in our office until the family chooses a funeral home.